So you're all very welcome to this practice support information session. I'm joined today by Patrick Horan, who's an Irish Law Awards winner, and he's going to be talking to us about marketing your practice online. So you're very welcome, Patrick.
Thanks, Justin.
I suppose to get started is so you recently won the Irish Law Awards. How did you win that, and what did you win it for?
Well, it was the communications section of the awards. It was many different areas of it. I saw it and I entered myself. I'll be honest, I did, and I wanted to see how that would pan out in terms of the people that were there as well. So I guess all of us in the group of, I think there was maybe 12 in my group, we all submitted our own entries, and ultimately the awards thing was last October, and yeah, I was successful. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah. So do you want to give us a little bit of a background to your career to date, and how you ended up developing such a unique understanding of marketing your practice online?
Well, I'm not sure it's unique.
Yeah.
I suppose I have what I would describe as a kind of a critical voice, not so much argumentative in that way, but I'm always kind of questioning assumptions. And I remember myself and my colleague that I used to work with, Hugh Phelan, we joined up with an AI video company a couple of years ago, and one of the assumptions was, and you hear it today, and people will hear it today, that if you're on page 1 of Google for anything, you're going to get the calls. Well, we did that through video, and initially we were not getting any calls. It wasn't working, and I was trying to figure out, well, what am I doing wrong? And once you go to the pattern of trying to figure out what's going wrong, and you look at marketing, books, public relations, advertising over the years, and you learn from the people who have done this with Coca-Cola, Rolls-Royce, McDonald's, you see what they were doing, and there's no reason why you couldn't apply at least some of those principles to law. And when I did, things started to move for me, certainly online, and in terms of what I'm doing right now, yeah. So
yeah. Do you want to just explain a little bit how you got started, or?
Yeah, well, initially I was a guard for 10 years, and I left the guards in 2007. Trained to be a solicitor for 2 years, qualified, worked with a criminal law firm in Cork, and then worked with my good friend Hugh for a couple of years, and set up my own in about I think October 2021, around that time. So I'm pretty much a year and a half, maybe it's October 20. It's October 20. It's 2 years and a bit that I've been on my own, and I kind of had some understanding of how Google works. I mean, most people think Google is a search engine, and it is a search engine, but one of the core principles of Google is that it's trying to link you with the thing that you're searching for that's going to make you the happiest. So if you're searching for camping equipment or boots or shoes, it's trying to drive you towards the website that's going to give you the greatest satisfaction, because it wants you to keep using Google. It doesn't want you dropping off Google and thinking, well, this doesn't work. And I got a load of terrible responses or websites I went to that were really poor and didn't answer my questions. So I knew that it was very interested in content, that kind of hackneyed word, content that would answer people's questions. And so I began looking at what people were asking online, specifically to do with my area, which is drink driving. What are the questions that they're asking? Is there any answers to those questions? I mean, most cases there wasn't. Can I provide those answers? I could. And then I ran those answers in the form of, we say, articles, little short articles, blogs, through my website. And that started then to push, Google started to point people towards me, because here's the guy that's answering the questions that you're asking to do with drink driving. So I think if in terms of marketing as a basic principle, if you're interested in what people in growing your business, find out what they're searching for online, and do work directed towards what they're searching for, and you will usually receive the rewards from it. So I've been doing it for the last 2.5, 3 years.
And so what were the general basics like? So obviously you picked an area of subject matter that you were a specialist in, which any lawyer could pick an area. You picked drink driving because that's your specialty. And then what did you do next?
It became my specialty. I don't really even like using those words like specialty, expert. No, I don't use those words, because I'm not. Who am I to say I'm a specialist? I'm not an expert because I say it. I'm an expert if you think I'm an expert, but not because I can't just tell you I'm an expert, because you're going to say, well, says who? Says you? Well, no, I'll decide if you're an expert or not. The public. So I kind of looked at, like, I treated the public like they're very intelligent. And I think a lot of people go wrong here, because they think, well, we're lawyers, we know the law, they don't know the law, and we need to tell them about it. They don't understand. Well, they do understand, because they've got Google, And you know yourself that if people have a question about company law, commercial law, employment law, family law, they'll have already Googled this thing. They'll have gotten more or less an answer on Google. Now they're coming to you. So they already have some knowledge. They're dancing between websites, your website, his website, her website, and they're trying to get as much information as possible. So they're not stupid. I treat them as though they're very intelligent. And I created my website not as a kind of a place to self-promote. That's easy. I can go on there and bang on about how great I am and ring this number, all the terrible advertising you see in websites in the UK and America, really tacky, tawdry stuff. I give people as much information as possible so that they have all the information so that they themselves can come around to the idea eventually, hopefully, that, yeah, this guy probably knows what he's talking about. Maybe he's worth giving a shout to. But I focus on what they're searching for. I know what they're searching for, and I answer those questions that they're searching for up as much as I can. And I give them as much information about this area that they can possibly get. And there's probably no website in here or the UK even that does that. But eventually, if you kind of focus on that, it doesn't cost any money. People will eventually come to the idea that this person plainly knows maybe more than other people. And I don't pretend to do. I know there's lots of guys who know more than me, lots of them. I work with them from time to time. They're really great guys. But I approach it from that point of view to help them, not to promote me, to help them. This is a place where you're going to find answers for you. Okay, this is some stuff I've created. You might like it, maybe you won't. You might think it's relevant or useful, maybe you won't. But it's there if you want to read it or watch it or whatever else. And that approach for me has worked anyway.
So I know one of your goals is to try and build trust and credibility with your target group. Do you want to just talk about that for a few seconds?
Yeah, I looked into that. And again, I was using kind of a critical mind. I went looking at like, what do people think about lawyers whenever they think about us? And it's not often that they think about us. Okay, they just don't. If they do, they don't really like us because our reputation is not usually very good. When you mention that you're a lawyer, people kind of sometimes frown, whatever else, and more so if you're a criminal lawyer. Like for me, like they just don't have a very good view of us, and that's backed up. If you look at Gallup pollings, the Gallup polling agency in America, the Ipsos Mori polls in the UK, year on year, when people are asked their views of the integrity and professionalism of various different groups of people, lawyers feature in the bottom third all the time, every year. We're just about above used car salesmen and insurance brokers and bankers and stuff. But bankers are above us, actually. So people don't have a baseline view of us that's kind of negative. So I took the view, well, if I'm going to talk about what I'm talking about, I have to establish trust and credibility. And so I started doing lots of little videos, not to promote me, but to speak about a topic that's interesting to people, and to do it in a way that's kind of spontaneous, not scripted, not wooden. It's real. I think if you can look at my videos, and they're all short. I don't work off a script. I'll say to the guy that I'm talking to, I kind of want to talk about these areas. Now you pick the questions. And so I don't know what the questions are. I'll have more or less an idea, but it looks real and authentic. And that seems to work for people. I see a lot of videos where, even especially with big companies, big firms, lots of lighting, lots of sound, beautiful graphics, but the whole thing looks wooden and packaged. It's been honed down to an inch of its life. All spontaneity is gone out of it. And that looks wooden, and people are not stupid. They know full well it's scripted, and it turns them off right away. So none of my stuff is ever scripted. And it has that feel of authenticity. And if you can establish that, and people come to the view that you are that person, then you've already established baseline trust, and then it moves on from there.
So then in moving on and creating, you touched on it a little bit there around creating content and talking to customers. And
yeah,
do you want to just describe the process of how you come up with your content and how you put it together and how you talk to the customer effectively?
I kind of, first thing I do.
I'm sorry, is customer the right word in this?
I think potential customer. I treat them, actually everyone's a potential customer or client. Now look what I'm doing. I'm doing drink driving. Drink driving mostly is what I'm doing. Google is really interested in specificity. I learned that a long time ago from a good friend of mine who's a terrific guy in AI. I don't know anything about AI, nothing. I mean, that whole area is gobbledygook to me. But this guy is an expert, and he said Google likes specificity. What that means is Google is trying. If you could specify in one area or be specific in one area, Google will be delighted because that's the guy for that area. If I was, rather than me doing stuff like family law, employment law, PI, conveyancing, probate, and litigation, I just do one area. So it's very easy to know that, well, that guy over there, he could be pretty good at lots of different things, but he's probably very good at that one thing. And Google then treats me as that person because I've got pretty good credibility within Google now through lots of videos and blogs, and it likes the fact that there's a guy who does this thing. And so they'll direct traffic towards me. The content I'm creating is all simple English. There's no terminology, no legalisms anywhere, nothing like that, because people don't speak legalisms. The average person on the street, and everything is directed towards people with an age group between 15 and 20. That may sound quite young, but the average person on the street has a reading capability in that area. So they don't like it when you talk down to them using grandiose legal expressions. No one speaks like that. Lawyers amongst themselves don't use grandiose legal expressions. So why would you put them onto your website? All you're doing is alienating people when you do that. Simple English, it's hard to do. Simplicity is a really, really big thing about what I do. Everything has to be simplified. If I've got I'm a waffler, I really am. But if I write a paragraph long text, I'll try and condense that down to the least amount of lines and the shortest amount of words possible. And that takes time to do it. But if you get your mind into that kind of thing, it doesn't cost any money. You'll make your content easier for people to read and understand. And if you're reading it and you're understanding it, there's a chance I'm going to stay. If I'm going to stay, maybe there's a chance I'll ring you. And if there's a chance I'll ring you, then maybe there's a chance that they might become a client of yours. So simplify what you're doing, make it easy to read. Now, lawyers don't want to do that because, oh, well, I'm a lawyer. I've trained for years. I don't want to dumb down what I'm doing. Okay, fair enough. Don't. But if you don't want to do that, there's a lot of people who just don't get what you're saying. Don't use Latin expressions. You don't speak Latin. So why would you use stuff like, ipso facto, ergo, all this kind of nonsense? I mean, no one speaks like that. And when you do speak like that, it just looks pretentious, which is a thing that we're known for. So try and look at the things that people don't like about lawyers and don't be that person. But write in plain English, simple English. And when you do that, you'll appeal to the most people as possible. And that's actually the only way you'll grow your business. And that applies to small firms as well as big ones. People get hung up on loyalty. I've got a good client base. They're very loyal. Well, no, they're not. If you look at Byron Sharp and the Ehrenberg Bass Research Institute in Australia, he's a professor of marketing and he has done research on Coke, the motor industry, and the results are clear. People are not loyal. They won't stick with you. If they think their interests are better served somewhere else, they'll go there. So appealing to the most people possible is the only way to grow in any business anywhere in the world. And law is no different. But keep it.
Just in that creating of content, you brought up two kind of interesting ideas. One is storytelling and the other is questions people ask as ways of trying to understand what type of content is relevant to the lay public.
I'll give you a very easy one here. And this is something that anyone can do. This is what I've been doing. If you're into, employment law, if you go onto Google and just type in these words into Google, employment law solicitors Dublin, or here's the number one keyword in law anywhere, personal injury solicitors Dublin. That's the most valuable keyword in law. If you rank on that on Google, it's going to cost you €13 more or less per click. But just employment law solicitors Dublin. Now, when you search that, you'll see a bunch of law firms at the top with AD next to it, signifying ad. People don't click on those because they're ads. Now, if you're paying for ads, you're wasting your money. But if you go down that page, you'll see questions that people ask. What's the minimum period of notice required before my boss can fire me or whatever else? Those kinds of questions. These are popular questions. If you take those questions and put them on your website and answer them, you are doing a great service because Google is trying to direct traffic towards you. That's how you can do it. It's quite simple. None of my articles cost me a penny, not 1 cent, but it just required a bit of time and effort. And if you do that, you can direct a huge amount of traffic to yourself, which is what I've done. One of my articles now is I don't know. It's how to get off with drink driving charges. It's a great title. If you search for that term, how to get off with drink driving charges, you'll see my article on page 1 of Google, the top. You'll also see videos of me. If you were in the UK, you'd see my article on page 1, because I was dealing with a very popular question that people ask, and I was answering it. And Google said, well, this guy's answering that question, so we're going to promote him. We're going to push his article to the top because my article is relevant. And just in terms of content, Google released a content update in September. They're now penalizing people who put up content that is designed for search engines, stuffed with keywords, drink driving solicitor, road traffic, all that stuff. They're peppering their content with keywords to try and trick the search engine to shove them higher. Instead, they're reorganizing the search engine to make sure that the content that you give is designed for people. And for whatever reason, about 2 years ago, I started writing as if I'm talking to you. So whenever you read one of my articles, it's as if I'm talking to you, Justin, not some amorphous blob out there that might one day read it. I speak to you. You are it's written towards, it's addressed to you or your problem, but it's always you. It's not a person. It's you, so if you're reading it, it's as if I'm talking to you. And so the content, then the stuff I write is written for a person. And I read it out loud when I've finished writing it to make sure that it reads properly out loud. And if it doesn't, I change it around. And I don't always get it right, but I try. But it's always addressed to a person. So when the person's reading it, it feels as though I've written it for them. And that works. It's not written for a search engine, it's written for a person.
So do you want to talk just then about the different types of content that you create? So you create blogs, videos, and then articles, and then SEO.
Yeah.
Like, is it all the same article goes across all of the...
No, I mean, I first of all, I take out a pen and paper and I figure out I try and figure out what people are searching for online relative to drink driving. Okay, there's will I go to jail for drink driving in Ireland? It's a big one. First time offenders, Ireland, that's a big one. I find out what they're searching for, and then I write articles about that, and I use that phrase. I mean, I mastered in English, but I would never myself write a title with how to get off with drink driving charges, but that's what they're searching for. So I title my articles with that title in mind, and I answer it. In terms of video, same process. Video is actually tremendous for credibility. There is no better thing than video to enhance your credibility. If people trust you, there's a great chance they're going to do business with you. And video is terrific like that. Now, I know a lot of people say, I don't want to sit in front of a camera. I'd be very self-conscious. I might look silly. I might say something. I had the same thing. But if you spend time doing it and talk to a person as if I'm having a conversation with you. It's not stilted. It's not scripted. I don't know what you're going to ask me next, but it's a normal conversation, and speak in that conversational tone. But video is terrific that way. People can come to a conclusion about you from watching you talk that you can't get in an article. You just can't. I spoke to a lawyer in Cork there last year. Now, he did change, and that was good. Very terrific lawyer, like one of the best I've ever seen. And he had a website with no pictures on it, no pictures of him or anybody else. And I told him, you need to do that because people need to have a mental image at least of who you are. And he did change it around, and he's still terrific. But it's little things like that, professional pictures, not iPhone pictures. Don't take pictures on your iPhone. It looks cheap and tacky. And people will then assume you're cheap and tacky. And why am I going to pay you money? Why would I pay you a good deal of money? Because, all you're doing is what he can do. Spend a little bit of money on what you're doing.
Like 250 quid will get you a set of like headshots and
100%. I there's a lady in Cork that I would use every time, and 120 quid. I get 30 different pictures, and they're all high resolution, high definition. Okay, you can zoom in and pin if you want to do that kind of stuff. They're not going to pixelate out into nothing when you're going to try and zoom into a person's face. That's the essence of cheapness. All right, and that means you're cheap, and that means your value in their mind goes down. And why would I pay you much money if you do it professionally?
So Patrick, going back to this idea of having relevant content and trying to understand what it is that the customer wants. Do you want to just talk about how you've used data to better understand and how you go about doing that to better understand the needs and queries?
Well, again, the keywords are whatever they're searching for. Yeah. There's always a problem. There's a solution, and there's how you get the solution. That's really it. What's their problem? What's their solution? And how do I get that solution? If you always apply those three metrics to what you're doing, you'll produce stuff that's quite good. And Google wants answers. Give them answers. I mean, across all you can tap away on Google right now, and in terms of drink driving technicalities Ireland, drink driving penalties Ireland, drink driving limits Ireland. You'll see videos of me everywhere on YouTube, Google Images, Google Videos. In this country, I have kind of become that person over the last 2 years just by spending time doing that. Spending time trying to educate the average person on drink driving. What goes on in court? Will the judge be angry at me if I plead not guilty and I'm found guilty? Do I have to say anything in court? These are questions I would never have thought about, but that's what they're asking Google. So I answer them. And
So are you just using the main Google panel for this, or are you using the AdWords keyword tool?
I'll tell you now about AdWords. The number one clicked thing on Google is the item beneath the ad word. I'll explain what I mean. The number one clicked item on Google is the item beneath the ad word. People don't click on ads. They don't like ads. They hate ads, and they'll go out of their way to avoid ads. This is not new. This has been around for at least 100 years. If you go back to the beginning of advertising in the early 20th century, Edward Bernays, he was the father of public relations. He wrote some great books in the 20s about public relations. And he was saying that in around 1917, 1918, the days of putting adverts in the New York Times in 1917 saying, buy this toothpaste. This is the best toothpaste you're ever going to have for your teeth. It's going to be amazing. That day was over. People were just ignoring it. So they don't like ads. So if you're buying ads, I'm sorry to tell you, you're wasting your money. Even if they click on your website, they'll click out again because you paid to be there. So they'll go to the thing beneath the ad. And in many cases, that sometimes is me in terms of drink driving. But the content has to be, you can go onto Google and you can see for yourself, anything, personal injury solicitors, employment law solicitors, family law solicitors, or family law questions, Family Law Ireland. There'll be questions on that page that people ask. They're called related questions, or people always ask. Well, look at what they're asking, and try and pick one of them and answer them and stick it on your website and see what happens. But do it in your own original way and add value. Don't just repeat what someone else has written on some other website in the UK. Don't copy and paste anything, because if you do, Google will penalize you because it's repeat content. I learned the hard way there. I got pinged an awful lot by Google for putting up stuff that someone else had put up. Don't. Take an idea, put it into your own words, put it in plain English, and explain something that no one else is explaining. And if you do that, you're creating what's known as relevant content. And Google says, perfect. This guy is saying something new that nobody else is saying about this area. And then they'll start to push you a little bit higher. But that's pretty much, it's not very hard. It doesn't cost any money, just some time and effort. But no.
So do you want to just explain the link between how you've created yourself to be somewhat of an expert in this field versus the consumer or the customer has a problem that they want solved? Just explain that relationship, like how important that is again.
It's very, yeah. I mean, I knew full well. Well, the first thing I did was I looked at websites around this country and in the UK and some in America in terms of criminal law, road traffic, drink driving. And I looked at what they were doing. And it's more or less generic. And I'm not blaming lawyers for this, because the people who are doing this are digital marketers and SEO companies who are utterly clueless about people. I mean, they haven't a notion about how people actually react in the real world. So they'll tell you, you need to put this stuff on your website. You need to tell them how good you are. You need to tell them about what you do. They need to know this stuff. No, they don't. If people are on your website, there's a reason they're there. It's not because they got sick and tired of Daily Mail. They're there because they're scared. They're worried. They're deeply worried. Now that's your person. That's who you're dealing with. You're dealing with someone who's scared and worried. Now answer their questions. Don't promote yourself, because they don't care about you. They care about themselves. They don't care about you. They're worried about themselves in terms of what I do. Am I going to go to jail? Will I get put off the road? Will I have to emigrate? Those are real concerns that people have. And again, no one goes onto a lawyer website because they're sick and tired of BBC, Daily Mail or some other website. They're worried. Now, that's your market. Deal with that worried person. Okay, what are they worried about? Can you answer their worries? Think about what, if you're a lawyer in commercial law, what are the questions that you keep getting asked? You will know them. There'll be questions that you keep getting asked over and over again. Write them down. Now write an article about that in plain English, nice and simple. Answer that issue and put it onto your website and see what happens. And once you keep doing that in various different areas of commercial law, company law, employment law, you then become that person. After a while, if you stick with it, if you invest in your area as much as you can across loads of different questions, people will then go on to you and say, well, look, I want answers to this area of company law, and that guy, he's got loads of stuff. He's probably the guy. Maybe he's the guy. I don't know. I could ring someone who might tell me, but I don't know. I think he is. Because people are smart. They're clever people. They're not stupid. They're quite clever. They're used to scrolling online, and you know they know if one website is good and one website is crap. If that website's crap, I'm not going to go to that person. I saw one. I think I told you before. I went on to every single law firm website in this country many times a couple of years ago, and I remember seeing a website. I won't say what part of the country it was in, but it was a lawyer, and they were. This was 2019, 2020, and on the front page of the website was a thank you to the local Solicitors Bar Association for making them president of the local Solicitors Bar Association for 2009. This thing from 11 years ago was still on page 1. Now, to me, if I'm a punter, I'm going, right, if she's that, you know, lazy about her website, she might be lazy about my file. So no, I won't. And remember, I'm a punter. I don't know anything about lawyers. It's a whole different world I don't understand. So give me the information so I can form the view myself without having me to ask a friend. I don't want to ask a friend if I'm arrested for drink driving because I'm embarrassed. I want to know that. I want to know myself. So when people come on to me, they will say, well, you seem to be the person to talk to, or something like that. But they won't have talked to a friend.
So, Patrick, I know we're coming into the last sort of couple of minutes. Maybe just general advice to the general solicitor out there who's doing conveyancing and doing a bit of family law and has a range of services that they offer. What's your advice to them around sort of specializing or
I know people
creating an effective community message?
People will say well, it's easy for him to specialize, and I do. I am all over the country. I'm in Donegal next month and Galway next Monday and somewhere else. I don't know, all the time. And they might say, well, it's easy for you to do that. I've got kids at home to look after. I can't be driving around the country, and I get that. But if you're in an office, there's going to be 2 or 3 people who are doing different areas. You might be doing in the litigation department. Well, then start focusing on litigation. You know, and don't present stuff that's just text heavy, legalisms, statutes, case law. People don't understand that stuff and they won't read it. Okay, if you look at the way I write stuff, short sentences, line space, short sentence, line space, interspersed with pictures that don't mean anything. Those pictures on my website, they don't mean anything on the blogs, but they're designed to make you think, what's that picture got to do with the article? I don't know. Well, if you're thinking about it, you're sticking. And if you're sticking, there's a chance you might finish it. And I know full well that people don't read to the end of books anymore. We don't read books much anymore. So I try to make it as easy as possible for you to start from the beginning and get to the end without making it hard. If I was to write what I wrote in a condensed page, nobody would ever read it. So just think about what they're asking you. Write down the questions you commonly get asked. Try and write out something about that in your words as if you were talking to me or talking to your friend. And use that conversational style that you use when you're talking. Speak that way. No one's going to think that you're dumb. And there's actually there's studies done on this. The Nielsen team in America did studies on this, that people who speak in pretentious lingo, in using haughty language, are not regarded by the public as being more intelligent. They're regarded by the public as trying to hide something. If you can condense a complicated thing into simple English, they'll love you. So try and think about what you're writing, whether it's conveyancing. I mean, if you're doing a conveyance, there's loads of guys out there who've been doing it for 50 years. They have got interesting stories. Think about those really hard conveyances, the difficulty you have with the other side, the difficult client. Write about that experience, because now you're talking about people, and people love reading about people. Okay, you don't have to name the person, of course you won't. You know, if they were from Clonmel, they were from Carlow. If it was a man, it was a woman in your story. But stories are what people love. They love reading about stories about other human beings, not dry law, but stories. That's what we love. When you talk to your friends, it's about exchanging stories. You're meeting your friend in a coffee, for a coffee. It's a story about someone else. She said this to me, and I did this to him, and whatever else. It's always stories. So if you could write something about conveyancing in a story format, and you could because you got awkward clients sometimes, then do it. People read those things one after the other. And I have people telling me that they read all my blogs. I don't know how they do it, but they do. So yeah, that's what I would advise. You know,
so we're moving into the last minute. Do you have any final tips for us?
There's no reason why anyone couldn't do what I've done, and I don't pretend to be an expert at anything. I was just really interested in people, always people. Why do people search for these things? What's really on their mind? You know, and if there's 2 roads leading into the woods and they're both kind of the same, and they both look the exact same, why would you pick this one and not that one? What made you do that? I was interested in that. The marketers will tell you what people are searching for. I'm interested in why they're searching for them. And I kind of give a lot of thought into why would you search for that? What's on your mind? And if I can help fix that problem, then I do. But there's no reason why anybody else couldn't do the very same in their space. It's not that hard. It just requires some time and some thought, but not money. So everyone can do it.
Listen, Patrick, that's been a really insightful 25, 30 minutes. So really keep it nice and simple. Our next session is going to be on the 22nd of February, where we're looking at business grants and supports overview with the SAI, so energy reduction. On the 8th of March, we're talking about the 4th edition of the Solicitor's Guide to Professional Conduct. And then on the 5th of April, some research findings from Irish law firms' research. So Patrick, once again, thanks a million we hope you all join us for those future sessions. And Patrick, thanks again for being such a good sport with us today.
No problem. If somebody wants to ring me sometime, I'm happy to go through stuff with them at any time if they want. No problem at all. Happy to help. Good talking to you.
Listen, thanks everyone. Sloan, I'm Scarmont. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Justin. Take care. Bye-bye.